Senne Lammens is changing lives at Manchester United. He may not grab headlines, but he claims crosses, he makes saves, and he passes out from the back. It's all very drama-free. Lammens has only lost 2 Premier League games as a Manchester United player. He doesn't know what a crisis is. He's almost anti everything that Manchester United have been for the last 15 years, and it's been a massive breath of fresh air. Now, one of the main reasons why Lammens has changed our lives so much is because of the simplicity and almost the basic nature of his play. And I don't mean that in a critical sense. This isn't me saying he's a basic footballer, but he does the basics very well. For example, as a goalkeeper, he stops shots, he saves shots, which is quite useful. He's prevented the second most expected goals in the Premier League this season. And you've got to remember, he didn't play the first 6, so that's very impressive. Now, perhaps it doesn't say too much for our defence, the fact that we want to be competing in the top 4 and are facing so many shots at our goal, but it is fantastic that Lammens is doing so well and he's saving them. And what I love more than anything, though, is that when Lammens is making a save, a lot of the time he catches the ball, he looks after the ball, he keeps the ball. And I just think that immediately takes the pressure off defenders. It sort of removes a lot of the chaos of an action. If a player shoots, right, the opposition have a shot from the edge of the box, and your goalkeeper saves it but spills it, we all know that moment of just pure panic and chaos. We feel it as fans, and the players have to feel it as well. Your goalkeeper scrambles to try and get on the second ball, your defenders are dropping back and trying to hook it clear, you've got strikers rushing in, it's all a bit of a shambles. However, if the opposition have a shot and your goalkeeper just catches it and looks after it, all the pressure is gone. Your centre-backs can split a little bit wider and you can focus on the in-possession phase. You can settle yourselves, you can calm down, and you can sort of build again. And I think that is something that Lammens has done fantastically well. He's made some really good saves in his time here so far. My favourite ones, personally, and maybe that's because we watched David De Gea for so long, are the low saves, the saves with his feet. I love to see a goalkeeper that can get his feet out, his legs out to block the opposition, and I think Lammens has done that very well. So in terms of his shot stopping, we will come back to a slight criticism that I've got later on in the video, but I think the basics, he's done it all very well, and his handling in particular just takes so much pressure off the defence. And how long have Manchester United needed that? A calm goalkeeper that takes the pressure off. Now that actually leads very nicely onto our next point, because there is another way in which Lammens has taken the pressure off and been quite calm as a Manchester United player, and that has been with his cross-claiming or his cross-stopping. He's actually in the 79th percentile in the Premier League for the crosses that he has stopped coming into the box. His aerial duels, he is in the 79th percentile. Not bad for a goalkeeper that I did have a few concerns about. His statistics in the Belgian League always looked absolutely fantastic when it came to claiming crosses, but when I watched the footage, I always felt that lofted balls into the box, he was great. He was confident, he was commanding, he would come and claim the ball. But driven crosses, I was a little bit worried about. But to be honest, we just haven't seen it at all. He's been absolutely fine. There's barely been a cross into the box, which has caused a problem for him. And again, you've got to think of the impact that that has on the rest of the team. If your goalkeeper is one of these keepers who is stuck to his line, then your centre-backs have to drop deeper. Your centre-backs have to come even deeper to defend. And of course, that means you sacrifice territory. That means you become more and more passive. You get closer and closer to your own goal, and you just invite more pressure. Or, the even worse type of goalkeeper is the type of goalkeeper that comes for a lot of crosses, but just gets absolutely nowhere near them. You know, comes out and is flapping all over the place, doesn't get the ball, maybe gets a loose touch on it, and again, panic in your box. You've got your centre-backs trying to react and clear it, your goalkeeper scrambling on the floor, forwards running in. It's all a bit of a nightmare. But if your goalkeeper just comes out, claims the cross, takes it out the air, you relax. You know, your centre-backs, again, don't now need to think about the next defensive action. They can take a breather. The whole team can reset and stop for a second. Maybe even we can play long and actually get ourselves on the next attack. But again, Lammens is just fantastic at taking the sting out of everything. Even set pieces, one of the most important parts of football currently, especially in the Premier League. Set pieces are everywhere, getting absolutely spammed into the box. Having someone like Lammens, who is so confident to come and claim the ball, but also very strong claiming the ball, is fantastic. Now, he did make a slight error recently, one where he didn't get it quite right. But what I love is that just a few minutes later, he was back out there, he was doing it again, making that slight mistake, which was a mistake, but it didn't affect his confidence. Some keepers would shrink when they make a mistake and make another mistake, but not Lammens. He seems to put it past him and just move on to the next action. It's lovely, isn't it? It's very, very simple, but it's lovely. Now, I think everything that we've discussed so far is something that everyone has spoken about. The fact that Lammens has been calm, he's been commanding, he's been confident, and he's taken pressure off of the players in front of him. But I think something that's gone under the radar a little bit is actually his on-the-ball play, his distribution. Now, I don't think he's elite, not at this moment in his career. He's not peak Edison with his passing. But I think he's pretty darn competent, and I think he's actually been pretty effective, particularly under Michael Carrick. where there's more emphasis on trying to play out from the back, more emphasis on trying to keep the ball. And of course, your goalkeeper is so important to that. If you've got the ball in these situations and you pass to your centre-back and the opposition come and press really high, there is every opportunity you're going to get that ball back, and that's when the opposition are going to squeeze you. So Lammens has to be calm in those moments, but everything we've seen so far suggests that he will be, and he is. He's confident on the ball. I actually think tactically, though, he's been a really useful weapon for us in the first phase. There are brief moments where he almost becomes the extra outfielder in possession. Now, I still think we can see it a little bit more, a bit like how Ten Hag used to use Onana at one point. I think we can see more of it. But I think particularly, it was the City game. I want to say it was the City game. I'll play a clip so you guys will understand. But moments where, let's say the opposition are man-to-man, when that is the case, if your goalkeeper is in a rush, you don't really have anyone that you can play to. You don't have any centre-backs open, you don't have any midfielders open, and you don't have any full-backs open. So what some goalkeepers will do is panic and play a terrible pass, or just boot it long and give the opposition the ball back. But what Lammens has been doing is taking his time on the ball, which eventually draws the opposition in, because the opposition can't just stand there for 90 minutes. We can't just be stood like this. So eventually the opposition have to press. But what this means is that with a little bounce pass combination, we can actually find ourselves the extra player. So let's say Lammens has got the ball, he takes his time. Eventually this forward comes towards him. Now Lammens can't play the pass to Harry Maguire because there's a forward in the way. But what we can now do, if we're free with our movement and the players recognise the cue to do this, is we can drop into midfield and we can now play that bounce pass, and suddenly we're out from the back and suddenly we've got a bit more time. But that only happens because Lammens is patient. The fact that he's willing to put his foot on the ball and take a touch and take his time, it just draws those opposition players in, and that's when, as we know, we can get a little bit more space. The other thing I like about his game is his long passing. Now, to tell the truth, I think long passing is very important, particularly with so many teams pressing high up the pitch. Sometimes you've got to go over it, but it's not actually a side of the game that I'm in love with, just because it isn't quite as aesthetically pleasing as what other things are. But with Lammens, it's incredibly effective, because they're long passes, not long balls, and there is a difference. For me, a long ball is just a ball in an area. You're just chucking a ball into a space and sort of hoping for the best. You're just trying to get it away from your goal and turn the opposition around. With Lammens, though, these are long passes. He picks out players. These aren't general zones of the pitch. He picks out specific players. He's able to find people. But the distance that he gets on the kicks is absolutely fantastic, and that gives United an advantage. So let's say we were to go long from the goalkeeper with Lammens, and we look to play the ball long, but it falls a little bit short. What I'm talking about here is the goalkeepers that send the ball long, but it only just reaches the halfway line, or just dips into the opposition half, which is great. It's good distance, but the problem is, if the opposition win the header, the ball drops into a horrible position. So let's say you play long from your goalkeeper, you get around the halfway line. If the centre-back wins the header strongly, it's going to drop roughly here, in the Manchester United half, with the forwards high up the pitch taken out of the game, and suddenly you are sort of running straight on to the Manchester United backline, especially if one of the midfielders is caught higher. It's a problem. However, because Lammens sends his kick so much further, it gives United the advantage on the second ball, because that back four, for the opposition, they're winning the ball here now. So let's say the centre-back does the exact same header again, copy and paste, but now it drops here. In terms of the team with the advantage, in terms of with the direction that the players are moving and everything, the part of the pitch, it just suits United. You know, as a United fan, would you rather the ball dropped here or over here? I know what my answer would be. It's over here, where if we can get on the second ball, we're in a very dangerous position and we can hurt a team. But if we don't, at least the opposition still have a lot of the pitch to cover before they can get at our goal. So I think Lammens' short distribution has been great. I think it can improve. I think he can get a little bit better, but that's absolutely fine. He's a young goalkeeper. He will grow into this role. He's only really recently been required to do this, to play out from the back. His long passing, though, is a real weapon. And I think for the future of Manchester United, that's key. A team that can do both. If you can play short and you can play long, you become very, very difficult to prepare for. So how about some criticisms? Because Lammens isn't perfect. He's still a young goalkeeper, right? If he was perfect already, he would have cost a lot more than what he did. He's a fantastic young player, but he does have things that he needs to work on. For example, like we've said there, I think his work in the first phase can improve a little bit. You know, those slides into midfield, he can perhaps do more regularly as he develops. The other concern would be shot stopping, because I think we've all noticed the theme of this shot going in. That long shot from the outside of the box, particularly from the left, moving towards the right, towards the left of Lammens, flying into the top corner, is becoming a bit of a problem. Now, in one world, you want to sit here and say we're unlucky. The opposition are simply scoring worldies, and perhaps that is the case. But I just think when we've conceded a few of them, very, very similar, in the same region, I just start to think maybe there's a slight flaw and a weakness with Lammens and his saving technique in these moments, and particularly how he prepares himself for a shot. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not a goalkeeping expert. I'm going to put 2 Twitter accounts on the screen right now. These 2 accounts are absolutely fantastic. If you want to look at pretty much anything to do with football, but they're goalkeeping points. They've made some really good comments on Lammens over the last few weeks, over the last few months. So I think they're definitely worth checking out. I'll leave a link in the description. But one thing that they both pick up on is the positioning of Lammens' hands and his arms sometimes. He often starts with his hands and his arms sort of behind himself and quite low. The problem is, if he wants to get his hand up to make a save, he's got more distance to go. And when we're talking about 0.0001 second actions, right, that extra bit of distance you've got to go is a real problem in terms of your ability to make a reaction save. So that's perhaps something that Lammens can work on, having those arms in a better position. But I also think his footwork, and this is more of something I've noticed, his footwork for those shots in the top corner, I don't think he gets it right. He doesn't plant himself well enough to then get the spring, which is why sometimes it almost feels like he's falling as he's making that high save rather than springing into the top corner. I think that's something that he can work on. Now, again, in this regard, I'm not a goalkeeping expert, so I'm not going to say too much. I'll leave that to the professionals. But I think there is something that he can work on, because we don't want to concede too many of those long ranges. If it keeps happening, it's not just luck. There's a theme there. But yeah, apart from that slight little issue with his long-range shot stopping, which isn't the end of the world, I think Lammens has been absolutely fantastic. He did not cost us much money, and he's still very, very young, especially for a goalkeeper. He feels really young, which is great if you think about the project at United. You think this goalkeeper in 5 years could be a seriously top-level player. He could be one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and we've got him already in the door. I don't think he was signed to be first choice straight away, if I'm telling the truth. I don't think he was meant to be our first choice keeper this season. But things happened and he is, and he's been absolutely fantastic. And I'm very comfortable with him in goal. I think he's a very good young player. I think he's got a few steps to go through to become a top player, an elite player, one of the best in the world. You know, right now, he's not in that conversation for top 10 goalkeepers. But again, he's so young, that's absolutely fine. But he's got to figure out as a player, and the coaches have to help him as well, figure out what he needs to do to make that jump, to make that step. It doesn't have to happen this year, it doesn't have to happen next year. But over time, over the next 3, 4, 5 seasons, I think he needs to add a couple of things to his game, and then we've got a great player. For now, he's been a life changer, hasn't he? We're not talking about the goalkeeper every week, and that is lovely at Manchester United. He does all the basics incredibly well. He looks after the ball. When he's saving it, he keeps hold of the ball. He doesn't spill it out into the box. He takes pressure off the defenders. He's very confident on the ball as well. I think he's been a fantastic signing for United. I was a little bit concerned, but I think he's been absolutely brilliant. He's had a great first season, and long may it continue for Senne Lammens and Manchester United. For now, though, that is all I want to talk about, because with Lammens, there isn't much to discuss, which is the beautiful part of it all. So we are going to stop there. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Make sure to check out those 2 accounts in the description down below. And as always, I will see you in the next one.